Today, we're going to talk about a really huge moment in Pakistan's history. It's a constitutional change that tried to completely rewire how the entire country is run. We're talking about the 18th Amendment.
So, picture this. It's April 2010, and inside Pakistan's parliament, something historic is happening. They vote almost unanimously to pass this massive amendment. And the goal? Oh, it was ambitious. They wanted to flip the script on decades of centralized rule and give a whole lot of power back to the provinces.
At the time, it was hailed as this incredible victory for democracy. But you know how it is with headlines. The real question is, what did this giant power shift actually change on the ground? Let's break it down.
All right, here's our roadmap. First, we'll set this stage and look at the history that made this whole thing necessary. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the amendment itself. After that, we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly, the potential benefits and the hidden dangers. And finally, we'll talk about why this journey is really far from over.
For decades, if you wanted to understand power in Pakistan, you just had to watch which way the pendulum was swinging. And it was always swinging in one direction, away from the provinces and straight towards the central government in Islamabad. And you don't have to take my word for it. The numbers tell a wild story. Just look at the federal government's slice of the pie. By 2010, right before the big change, the central government was collecting a staggering 94% of all tax revenue. 94%! That left the provinces with basically crumbs to run their affairs.
And listen, this wasn't some bureaucratic accident. This was by design. You had decades of military dictators and autocratic leaders who systematically chipped away at the power of the provinces. All that power concentrated in one place, it just led to massive discontent and instability, building up pressure until something had to give. And that something was the 18th Amendment. This was supposed to be the moment that the pendulum didn't just stop, but swung decisively all the way back. So what was it at its core? Well, the purpose was pretty simple. Decentralize power. It was a constitutional reset button, designed to take major responsibilities off the federal government's plate and hand them over to the provinces. And when I say major, I mean it. This was not a minor tweak. The scale was just immense. We're talking about 17 entire federal ministries being completely abolished. Huge portfolios, things that affect everyone's daily life, like health, education, and agriculture, just handed over. You say, before this, there was this thing called a concurrent list, which was basically a messy gray area of shared powers. And you know what that means, right? Confusion, blame games, nobody taking responsibility. The amendment just wipes that list off the map. It's kind of like a corporate HQ telling its regional branches, okay, you're in charge now, for real, no more excuses. So what was the big hope here? What was the best-case scenario everyone was dreaming of? Let's look at all the potential good that could come from this. The theory behind it was actually pretty compelling. If you spread the power out, the central government becomes a less shiny prize for any potential military coup. It helps build trust. And, maybe most importantly, it makes it super clear for regular people who's in charge. The buck now stops right at the provincial chief minister's door. I love how the source paper explains this. It personifies the whole thing with the example of Ala Raka, just an average citizen. For him, the government that really matters for his daily life, his schools, his hospitals, the roads he drives on, is now his provincial government. It brings power a little closer to home. But, like with any massive change, there are always risks. And there were some serious pitfalls here, which led a lot of people to wonder, was this a missed opportunity to fix even deeper problems? And these hidden risks were pretty serious. There was a real danger of creating a jungle of conflicting rules, making it a nightmare to do business across provincial borders. It also created this huge disconnect. Provinces now had the power to spend, but the federal government was still the one collecting most of the taxes. When you're spending money you don't have to raise yourself, well, accountability can take a nosedive. And this chart reveals something crucial. The power shifted from the feds to the provinces, but then it stopped. It didn't keep trickling down to the local city and town governments. In fact, local governments in Pakistan control a much smaller share of public spending than they do in a place like China, which is actually very decentralized at the local level. And it's not just about money. It's about political protection, too. In India, local governments are actually safeguarded by the Constitution as a third tier of government. In Pakistan, their power is much more fragile. It's often dependent on the whims of those same provincial governments that just got all this new authority. So all of this brings us to the final part of our story. it becomes pretty clear that the 18th Amendment wasn't the finish line. It was more like one giant step in a very, very long journey.
And the source material is blunt about it. It concludes that the amendment was a crucial first step, but also a small and incomplete one. The job of reforming how Pakistan is governed is far from done. So what's next? Well, a pretty clear reform agenda starts to emerge. It's about making sure the national economy works as one unit, getting real about fiscal responsibility at every level. And this is the big one, finally, truly empowering local governments to bring that power even closer to the people.
And that leaves us with the central question, doesn't it? The 18th Amendment moved power from the federal capital to the provincial capitals. But will the country's leaders now take that final, crucial step? Will they bring power all the way down to the local communities where people like Ala Raqqa actually live their lives?
The author of the paper we've been looking at puts it perfectly. We never fully succeed, but we must keep trying. It's a powerful reminder that building a better, more responsive government isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a journey you have to stay on, forever.